The Maldives. This name stands for one of the most beautiful islands on this planet. Turquoise waters and sandy beaches. Kind inhabitants with exotic traditions. And an absolutely unique underwater life. The Maldives form a chain of gorgeous islands. About 800 kilometers from north to south, up to 130 kilometers from east to west. The name Maldives is Indian and means Garland of Islands. It's about 800 kilometers long and up to 130 kilometers wide. What a fantastic view! And what a feeling to know that a wonderful cruise with one of the most exclusive motor yachts in the Indian Ocean is in the store. But before this great experience on the ocean starts, we're happy to enjoy the full luxury of an island resort. 7 a.m., shortly before sunrise, as most of the time it's accompanied by thick clouds. Early in the morning, some people are out there, fishermen working in their so-called dohonies, tourists kayaking just for their pleasure. We are on the island of Kuta Hura in the northern Male Atoll, about 13 kilometers from the capital Male. Kuta Hura measures only 600 by 60 meters and is a private island. It's home of the Four Seasons holiday resort and a perfect place for cultivated fainéants. About 1,200 islands belong to the Maldives. 92 of them are purely for tourism. All the others are uninhabited or just for the natives. No native person lives on Kuta Hura. It's simply too expensive for almost all of them. The resort is a holiday destination for rather wealthy people and many honeymooners. The bungalows offer a high standard of luxury and, no wonder, the rates are appropriate. A beach bungalow costs about $500 per night in average, a water bungalow about $700. Well, paradise has its price. Naturally, such an offer also includes a temple for your wellness, which is located on its own tiny island. The transfer to it is served by a dohony, and then your ultimate spa experience can start. An oil or a mud treatment, a massage, or a bath with roses. Everything that nurses the skin and body and pampers the guest. In any case, the manager is totally excited.
You're actually taken away, drift off into a different world. It's like being in paradise, truly. The smell, the skin feels amazing. The rose petals on your skin, it's like silk. It's a dream.
Well, could you describe them more impressively? The high skills of Far East wellness treatments. But the art of Asian cooking is equally sophisticated, as demonstrated in some cooking classes at the Kuta Hura Resort. Head chef Andreas Haag from Germany shares his knowledge with guests who are eager to learn. The participants in our classes can learn about the various influences from other regions around us, also with respect to spices and herbs. In our classes, we mix many flavors and herbs, and the whole idea behind it is in the end to bring together the variety of products to a consensus that tastes very, very well. Not always, this is as difficult as the creation of the naan bread. Like many other dishes on the Maldives, it originally comes from India. Apart from this, a vegetable curry and tandoori lobster are on today's agenda. Seafood in many variations is very popular in the Maldivian cuisine. And in case you have a surplus of calories, you can immediately get rid of it through physical activities. From scuba diving to parasailing, all kinds of sports are offered to fill your leisure time. A Maldivian air taxi is arriving. The seaplane is supposed to bring us to the starting point of our yacht cruise. And the flight transfer is already a great foretaste of the upcoming journey. The Maldives seen from above, atolls, coral reefs, sandbanks. After half an hour, we arrive on the Island Explorer. This super yacht will be our home for the next 4 days, and it will help us to discover some of the most beautiful spots of the Maldives. The Four Seasons Island Explorer is almost 40 meters long and truly a very exclusive catamaran. No wonder Captain Chris Ellis is excited about it.
The catamaran is quite a unique vessel. You've got two hulls, which are mounted at a distance of almost 40 feet. Due to this, maneuvering with a catamaran has some advantages. You can turn around and navigate very quickly. The ship is much smaller and easier to handle than big vessels. Therefore, we are able to pull up very close to really great spots, which cannot be approached by bigger vessels. Thus, we can offer most interesting and unique experiences to our passengers on board.
One of these great experiences is, of course, scuba diving. The Island Explorer is also a swimming diving center with appropriate convoying boats. For the diving excursions, there is a traditional tahoni. It allows us to environmentally friendly reach some of the most attractive diving and snorkeling estuaries. The expectations are high. After all, the Maldives are on one of the top diving estuaries worldwide. Looking at such images shows clearly what the fascination of diving is all about. In the midst of the Indian Ocean, the variety of fish and sea animals is just boundless. After the diving excursion, we're back on the Island Explorer, not only with lots of impressions, but also hungry and a bit tired. Good to see that the onboard restaurant offers a first-class cuisine. And where could relaxing feel better than on the sun deck of a yacht that carries you in with a gentle breeze to the next highlight of your vacation? A land excursion is now on our schedule to Kendu Island to learn more about the life of the natives.
Hello.
At first sight, it appears as a peaceful and rather uncomplicated world. Hard to believe, but more than 80% of the 280,000 Maldivians have never left their island or atoll. Almost none of them have ever been to the capital Male. The cruising radius of the 850 islanders is quite small, and the traditional roles within the families are very clear. The women are managing the daily routine and the kids. For the men, the major issue is fish. Tuna is served for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. Tuna is half of the life. Kendu Island is also religiously important for the Maldives. In 1153, a merchant from North Africa arrived on Kendu and introduced the Quran to the natives. And within 6 months, all Maldivian islands had converted to Islam. Nowadays, Islam is the state religion, but hardly to feel in everyday life. Only very few women are wearing a veil, for example. Dances are a traditional art in the Maldives, such as Bodu Beru, which means big bowl. Dancing and music is men's business. And how else could it be? Most of the time it deals about fishing. We're back on board, again cruising through the island world with 50 knots speed. At the wheel is Captain Chris Ellis. He originally comes from Sydney, has spent his whole professional life on the ocean, and has profound knowledge about the Maldives.
The Maldives is a really unique region. I don't think there's any comparable area on this planet. We are inside a system of atolls and therefore protected from the currents in the open sea. Something special in the Maldives is also that the nautical charts are based on information that dates back to 1935, so they're not really up to date. Therefore, many things you see in the charts do not correlate with reality, and thus, in your navigation, you have to be very alert to details operating in this area.
From the distance, almost impossible to see is such a sandbank. A truly dreamlike spot. Nothing but sand, air, and water. Greetings from paradise. The climax of exclusiveness. A massage on the sandbank. Listening to the chop of the groundswell. And with the Island Explorer in sighting distance.
The philosophy on board this ship is that we try to create a casual atmosphere as far as possible. Our guests often have very different backgrounds, and when they come on board, we take off their shoes. It's not because we want to protect our decks, it's got to do with relaxing.
Part of this philosophy is an open bridge policy, which means passengers can visit the command center at any time. And if it's suitable, they could talk to the captain or just watch him working. The atmosphere on board is very familial. 19 crew members take care of a maximum of 22 passengers. And those enjoy noble accommodation in 10 cabinets, each for about $400 per night. And if you'd ask for even more exclusiveness, you could book the Explorer Suite, an apartment with a guaranteed ocean view for about $900 per night. From windsurfing to deep-sea fishing, all services on board are inclusive. This also applies to our next highlight, a truly spectacular diving excursion. Diving instructor Mohammed explains the estuary. In 1985, the trawler of a local fishing company was supposed to be sunk in this spot. But the mission didn't run according to plan, and no, the wreck is almost in vertical position. It juts out of the water and reaches down to 30 meters depth. A perfect spot for wreck diving. Within the past 20 years, corals have seized the wreck as a new living environment. Fishes are dwelling in the interior, and for divers, the lost trawler has become a most attractive object. The Maldives are in danger. Not so much the underwater world, but the islands themselves. The reason? The sea level is rising.
The prediction for the future is that the sea level will rise between 50 centimeters and 1 meter in average within the next 100 years. That doesn't sound like very much, but if you have in mind that 80% of the Maldive Islands are actually lower than 1 meter, that means, in fact, that in less than 100 years, 80% of the islands in the Maldives will be below sea level. That has huge consequences for the people here. They will not know where to live and where they are going to go. The government is currently already in negotiations with Australia, and the plan is that in case of emergency, Australia will provide some land for all inhabitants of the Maldives, and in exchange, Australia will get exclusive fishing rights in the Maldives.
It's time to learn more about sea life. This regular lesson is called Fish Talk, and marine biologist Guy shares his knowledge about the Maldives with the passengers. This table shows who's on board and who's off board, an important information for security. Thus, nobody can get astray after a land excursion. Once again, we pay a visit to a native's island, Kashidu, which means loose coconut. Coconut palms are the most important kind of plant in the Maldives, and coconuts are the livelihood for the people of Kashidu Island.
Kashidu has got one of the largest coconut plantations in the Maldives. They cultivate coconuts not just for themselves, but also to trade them with other islands, and also to deliver them to the capital Mali, from where they are then sold to the local resorts on the local islands.
There are also many coral houses on Kendu Island. For corals are the traditional building material, and all houses used to be built with corals. A weather-resistant, cost-saving and dense material, which is easily found on the doorstep. Nevertheless, due to protection of corals, this building technique is not allowed anymore. Nowadays, the Maldivians use brick or concrete for construction. Very often, several generations of a family live together in one house, with 4 to 6 children in average.
In the Maldives, there are no more higher schools. So, up to about the 10th grade, you can attend the local schools in our country. If you have enough money, you can then continue your studies in other countries, particularly in the neighboring states of India or Sri Lanka. Here in the Maldives, there are no universities, but in education, all the people in the Maldives know how to write and read.
And what is 1,000 times more interesting than school? Football, of course.
They are mad crazy about soccer, and particularly about European and English football. Every weekend, 4-5 matches are broadcasted, and also the Champions League, live and for free. Many children run around with football shirts and they play every day. They just love soccer.
And like everywhere else in the world, the kid's dream is to become a famous player. Or maybe not, because then they would have to leave this unique spot on Earth. A gorgeous region, which we were allowed to discover on board of the Island Explorer. A cruise on this fantastic yacht through the Maldives is definitely a trip to paradise.